Hey, thanks a lot, Brandon. And again, I just want to encourage anyone to type and chat a question as we go. Certainly want it to be as interactive as possible. We love using technology, but we also know it comes at risk. So, please try to use the chat to your advantage. Brandon will help watch out and ask aloud, and we'll try to make this as topical or whatever the right word is so that we speak to you. So I appreciate it, Matthew. You've kind of let me know what you came in tonight with your expectations, and I'll do my best to try to speak to you. I hope we can do that. So Career Source, just real quick, we're the region's local workforce board. Most anywhere in America, there's federal and state legislations in most other states. And what we are is to help job seekers, during times of layoff, but we also do other roles as well. So partnering with educational institutions and trying to give feedback from what we hear in the industry so that, you can advise your children is great. And tonight's topic, how it kind of came about, is all cities across the United States and states as well, they really target certain industries because of high wage growth, clean jobs. A lot of times, most of them are office based, not out in the hard elements where risk of injury is probable or likely. And we're going to kind of go through those. So with no further ado, I should be sharing my screen at this time. If there's some technical malfunction, please chat and let us know. But those six here locally are defined as manufacturing, aviation, and aviation really kind of falls underneath manufacturing, logistics and transportation, information technology, finance, and healthcare. And so the way this presentation's done is there are four of us here at CareerSource that focus on different industries. So you'll kind of see a name down there like Robin. I'm going to speak for her. I'm going to speak for the other three tonight. And she oversees manufacturing and aviation. Manufacturing is a very targeted industry because it brings in outside dollars into your economy. So, you know, whether it's through economic development, but we always, most people are targeting manufacturing. And the great thing about manufacturing is if you have children who maybe, just don't see themselves going to college, they don't want to, there are high wage possibilities by going and working with your hands initially, on the job. And there are certificates and things like that. But manufacturing operations, it's not the old day of, sledgehammers and coal. I mean, there's a lot of technology used, and you learn it as you go through. Some people might use the term apprenticeship, but most likely on-the-job training, and then obtaining those certificates as they go. So manufacturing is a constant. A lot of places, when they pay for all the property, plant, and equipment, they're going to have 24-hour operations. This is a snapshot from Jobs EQ of some of the wages that you could look at. Obviously, the operations managers are what people try to get to and such, and sales can also be higher wage. But getting there, coming in, becoming like a CNC machinist, and working through those roles, or how you can go on and work your way up in the organization. A lot of times to take on managerial opportunities, formal education will certainly help you stand out. And but a lot of times the employers will pay for that. So speaking of which, here in Northeast Florida, we have a large Anheuser-Busch, Maxwell House downtown is something you might recognize, but some others as well, like Westrock, AccuView, which some people might still refer to as Johnson & Johnson out on the south side. We have a large manufacturing operation. And Safariland is actually, I think, like an industry leader for Kevlar protection for police and paramilitary. And I do believe they do have some military contracts as well. But these are all some of the names you might recognize here on the First Coast that do manufacturing. Jinko's a new addition. It's actually a Chinese firm. But Florida Power and Light, they're buying a lot of the solar panels that are made from Jinko here on the First Coast. So really part of a global manufacturing presence. And so again, we were talking about that career path. That's what we always want to talk about. But you can graduate high school, start working, start earning a wage, and start to obtain these certifications that can help secure employment. If there are layoffs or something, those certifications certainly make you desirable to other employers. But as you work your way up, again, formal education always helps you to achieve higher levels of management, so it's there for you. But sometimes when people get their airframe and power plant certifications and they're working out at NADEP, if it's still called that, but out at the base doing the retrofits on the F-18s, I mean, that is a very good wage, and that's before overtime. So if there's backlog or they can't find people, it's an overtime environment, and people really can do well for themselves. So just trying to think of anything more in that slide I could speak to. We do have a lot of slides, so I'm going to go quick, but just to put you at ease, we will at the end have a Q&A, and we'll make sure we take everybody's mute, make sure that they can speak aloud, and we'll try our best to answer those questions. So Carlisle and Flightstar are aviation companies here on the First Coast as well. Carlisle, I believe a lot of their operations down in St. Johns County. And that is another thing. I know every parent on the call tonight would be a Duval County resident, but should you live out to the edge of the county or something, the surrounding counties, those types of environments are conducive a lot of times for manufacturing, because they're trying to have as low cost of a land purchase as possible, but as long as city services are still available, like water and electricity and things like that. All right, now we're moving on to transportation and logistics. The upper left picture there, you might recognize as you drive in and out across the county line. And Duval County is in a very critical junction in the state, or actually in the nation. A lot of people don't understand, but we're actually more westward than Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I think that's the one that they always point out. But what's so important about Jacksonville in terms of logistics is we are dredging to support those ships that can go through the enlarged Panama Canal. But when the ships get here, whether it's to upload and go back over or to bring goods from afar, we've got Interstate 95, I-10. 75 is not that far away. I think it's less than an hour to get out to 75 at Lake City. And then we also have railroad. So Jacksport actually has a railhead out, at Blunt Island, and they're south of Blunt Island, where ships can unload. Containerized shipping allows it to go on a train, and it can get inland with a very cost-efficient mode of travel. We also have a lot of trucking possibility with 95 and 10 intersecting here as well. So I think I kind of spoke to all that. But the companies as well, you'll recognize a lot. Crowley is really in a strong, unique position because of some federal legislation. A lot of the U.S. protectorates down in the Caribbean requires it to be a U.S. flag vessel. So Crowley has done a great job of that in supplying like Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. But we have a lot of trucking here as well. Landstar is headquartered here. And I'll tell you one that if it's Christmas time, you might not recognize, but Fanatics, believe it or not, that's more of a logistics operation. They do some of their own manufacturing, but they'll bring in the goods, and here at Christmas time, you'll hear about them ramping up. But that's a local company that has really scaled up in the sports apparel business is what they do. Yeah, I know you always hear about Jacksport, but the one thing we always like to remind about Jacksport is that that is like the function of the government that oversees the ports, but they're private companies that work at the port, such as Crowley and others. I wish I could name them all, but a little outside of my realm. Okay, so what we're talking about are larger employers. A lot of times to get your start, you want to find your opportunity where things are larger. I'm kind of being stereotypical, assuming most are the parents because it's the Parents Academy. I hope there are some students on the line, but I'm going to gear towards that audience assumption. And one thing I want to point out with this, obviously, Southeastern Grocers, those are your Harveys, Winn-Dixies, and they certainly employ and offer, provide opportunity for people to begin there and grow within the organization. The corporate headquarters is out on the west side of Jacksonville in the Paxton area, but we do have Amazon here. Amazon is a great employer for tonight's audience, I believe, because you probably see on TV commercials, they're almost like the United States Army at this point, just saying, hey, we don't care what your goals are, use our tuition reimbursement to get there. And that's a really good thing. As a parent of a 16-year-old who has ambitions to go to some schools that cost a lot of money outside of the state of Florida, how you pay for a kid to go to school is a concern for many of us. So Amazon has tuition reimbursement for their employees, but it's not limited to a business degree or a transportation and logistics degree or anything like that. They don't care. They know they want motivated people. And even if they just have to use, quote unquote, Amazon temporarily for their greater life goals, Amazon's fine with that transaction. They need able-bodied people to go out and pick parts. It's a very fast-paced environment. We know because we helped people get there about 40 years ago, and some people go, no, I can't operate at that pace that they expect. But the people who can really seem to enjoy it. They like it. They like the peers that they work with. So just wanted to point out Amazon and its unique opportunity for this audience. CSX is an awesome employer. Whether you go the union route out in the riding on the trains or in the yards, or you work in the corporate headquarters down there where Shah Khan normally parks his yacht when it's in town. There's a lot of opportunity, and you can start at one and grow up. And I've known people that have gotten into management, worked like in maybe a corporate setting, but when they did have downturns in the economy and such, they were still had their union protection and their seniority where they could go back out and not lose a job. Maybe they no longer work in the office environment, but they still have that job because of how they started. UPS is another employer that is really good for young able-bodied people that can work hard. They do believe still offer a lot of tuition reimbursement. It's a lot of overnight work. So if your kid wants to go in and work at night, they can really take advantage of those hours and study as well. Crowley, we've talked about. Landstar's got a corporate headquarters out off of like Hodges, I believe. And then Publix, if you've ever driven out I-10, Publix has a large warehouse operation out on the west side that, again, entry-level work, and you can work your way up, become shift managers and things like that without ever going to college. Now, Publix does have tuition reimbursement, so that's another coaching point that we point out to a lot of people. But those are some of your top regional logistics positions. So what I'm always jealous about my peer who focuses on transportation and logistics is the career path is all built in. If you show up and want to work hard in a warehouse, learn how to operate a forklift, you can secure that. But where you go is really on you. There is a point to get into higher level management. You will most likely, to be considered for a job, need to go to college, but FSCJ has a great transportation and logistics program. UNF has a transportation and logistics program. And say you're a curious parent who goes, I'm tired of the banking industry or whatever you're in. What's really neat is UNF has a certificate program where it's not degree seeking. So if you've already got a bachelor or master, you can then obtain a transportation and logistics certificate and see about beginning employment like with Crowley, Landstar, CSX, somebody like that. What I always make sure I point out to anyone who's thinking before you go and get education, make sure you talk with recruiters and headhunters in the industry. that it really will allow them to consider you within their organization or place you at another organization if they're a direct hire specialist, before you go spending money believing everything that might be told of the possibility. So always kind of check but verify, trust but verify, I guess I should say, anytime somebody talks about what educational opportunities can do for you. Occupations, again, warehouse. I mean, up on the top left, that's lashing that they do with the ships, the ports. But a lot of the occupations are going to be in warehouse, and then truck driving. That's the other thing. Right now, to get your commercial driver's license, abbreviated as a CDL, you have to be 21 years old. But with the shortage of truckers in the United States right now, there's speculation that they might lower it down to 18 or come up with a possibility for people to waiver that. But there's a lot of money to be made driving trucks right now, as y'all have heard. So it's all kind of a logistics backlog on the West Coast, actually bringing some ships through the Panama Canal, and they're actually hitting Jacksonville and other ports in Florida because of that backup out in California. All right, staffing patterns. Again, I'm always going to try to point you to the higher dollar average wage. But one thing that I do always point out is the amount of employment in terms of job stability and things like that. So always factor that in as you begin positions. So I actually see in this slide here, even Postal Service mail carriers are listed as a form of transportation and logistics, government, protected job. So certainly a good thing that somebody coming out of high school could consider. A lot of times with federal jobs like that, there are preferences for veterans. So if you know anyone who has gone in the military and done their initial obligation, or they're a reservist, sometimes those veteran protections can help them with that job. All right, the career path, again, transportation and logistics. I'm always so envious. If you show up with a good attitude and do what they tell you, so to speak, in the warehouse, then you can go into, shift team leader and eventually operations management, working with some, or get into the logistics, where you're using heuristics and modeling and things like that to make sure that all those moving parts are part of a well-oiled process and not just, I don't know what the better word is other than helter-skelter. I mean, that's what you're trying to do, is make sure that things are predicted and that there's a solution there and it becomes a pattern that can take care of itself. We kind of talked about Wayfair was one that wasn't on the previous slide. They do have an operation here in Jacksonville now. Sudeth, in case you're not familiar, if you drive over the Main Street Bridge, you'll see a building there that there's corporate headquarters. They got a really neat niche, however you say the word, with military moves. So because we have so much military here in Jacksonville, people have to pick up and move. It's called a PCS in the military every 2 to 3, maybe 4 years. And somebody's got to move all those household goods. And so Sudeth has done a really good job of doing military moves. I know they do more than that, but I know that's a large part of their business. Everything right now is needing people. Education's never going to hurt you. I just always try to encourage everyone, if you know what you want to do, make sure that you're taking that education advice from somebody within the organization or the organization you want to get to. So many times people start in the industry and they're maybe thinking of another company or firm that they want to get to. Seek out, if not a mentor, just people who work in that organization, and make sure you take their advice as to what they look for as you go forward with any kind of educational plans. Finance and technology. Okay, I can speak best to this because this is what I'm supposed to know, but I do want to lower my expectations to you, Matthew, and let you know that there is a lot of different advice, and I'm going to give you and the others a good place to go and get that advice at the end of this presentation. So With finance, that encompasses insurance. So, we pay health insurance, we have life insurance, we have property and casualty insurance. And here on the First Coast, we have all of those. And then with finance as well, there's banking, there's mortgage. It can encompass a lot of things and a lot of well-paid, safe office environment type jobs. Bank of America is it's no longer our largest private employer. Baptist Medical actually overtook them the last couple of years. But between Merrill Lynch and Bank of America, there's about 8,000 employees in our region. Florida Blue, that's headquartered here for the state, has about 6,000, and those are the two large corporations a lot of people try to work towards. But with Citi having over 4,500 employees, and it's grown beyond the credit card that you might, if you've been here a while, you might remember Citibank card or something like that. But they actually have a large IT security, information security operation over there as well. JP Morgan Chase has come in through WAMU kind of going away, and Wells Fargo actually is the marquee on what old timers like me still refer to as the independent life building. So I can keep working down the list, but the whole point is to just kind of look at who are the larger employers if you're trying to get in, kind of the new shining star, the darling here in Jacksonville in a lot of ways. Everbank TIA and ViStar, those are kind of local. When TIA bought Everbank, that was a larger investment house that bought a bank, but they're still running the operation out of Jacksonville in terms of banking. And then ViStar is just growing by leaps and bounds, and it's really a blessing to the city in a lot of ways. They're buying a lot of downtown real estate and really helping a lot of things. So these are some of the larger financial employers. And again, the entry points into this, if college and paying for college is a concern, starting out as a teller at a bank, customer service for some of these are good entry points that a lot of times people can get in. They do offer, a lot of these larger companies offer tuition reimbursement. I do know ViStar has a minimum wage already over $15 an hour. Bank of America is on a plan to get to $25 an hour for the lowest position. So, a lot of good opportunity within these organizations. And as all things, you got to get in before you go up. And a lot of ability to grow in a lot of these financial firms. IT on the left, these might be strictly IT, so to speak. AT&T is a telecom in the market. They got about 2,600. But if you ever hear about the Fidelity companies, and that's not Fidelity Investments, that's separate, but Black Knight, FIS, or FNF, there's a lot of technology over there. Black Knight has over 2,400 employees, and FIS has about 400. Web.com has been renamed, but they have a large presence here in the market as well. And those are strictly IT employers on your left. But I do want to point out on the right, there are a lot of IT employed within Bank of America. There's programmers, there's data security, there's web developers, there's help desk for the employees. And that's a great entry point to begin a career in IT. Florida Blue, obviously the same exact way. These larger employers have a lot of strictly IT professionals within them. So the career paths, generically speaking, for banking and finance, again, customer service is what I tell most people, banking tellers as well. But if it were a mortgage or banking operation, you can start out as a processor, junior processor, kind of learn. It's on the job. There's no real specific training other than what the company wants you to learn of their process, how to do those loans. And typically you want to work your way up to an underwriter. Underwriters, many of them do have college education, but it's not required. If you get in and you don't make mistakes and you can turn files fast, trust me, your formal education is going to count very little in terms of being a good underwriter. It's about making sure you thoroughly underwrote the file, caught everything you should, and you do it fast. And so that really allows for a very lucrative career field for people without, formal education. Accounting, and there are accounts receivable and payable positions, but for the most part, if you're going to grow in accounting, you need an accounting degree. To become a CPA, you actually need a master's degree. So there's going to be formal education. Investment banking and retail banking, a lot of us know a lot about that. But as you get in, if you want to grow within it, those are going to have a heavy reliance on formal education. But over on the information technology side, again, getting in, beginning as a customer user support specialist, help desk, something like that, allows you to begin your career in IT. If it's a larger area, you can take coursework to try to grow your certificate path for security, data security, or data analytics, even possibly, and maybe even learning how to write code. Many programmers and people that are doing data analytics, they will have formal education. So there does present that situation as you go for jobs down the road. Your formal education might limit you, but if you can write code, you're in demand. And the beautiful thing, and what I'm always so envious of for those who can write code, is you don't have to take on managerial responsibilities. There's people that are good at writing code and they're making 80, 100, 120,000, if not more, without even having direct reports. They don't want managerial responsibilities. It's almost sometimes when you're talking about a group of computer programmers who can write software coding, many of them don't want to be the architect. They're just quite fine, being told what they're to do to contribute to the project. And I've seen that firsthand. And a nice position to be able to do. Most of us, to earn up our wage, have to take on managerial responsibilities, which aren't fun at times. That's why you're getting paid more money when you accept those positions of greater responsibility. Obviously, the top of the pyramid is a chief technology officer or CIO, chief information officer, or something like that. But again, information technology is one of the least reverent career paths in terms of formal education. I never want to mislead anyone and try to say you don't need education, but you can get in, and if you're good and you're a self-motivated learner, that's really the key about IT. You can make good money, learning that craft. And I haven't forgot about you with Python. Matthew, at the end, I'll point out a few things. So obviously, these are some average wages. Probably need to dust off and update this. There's been a little inflation since about 2 or 3 years ago when we ginned up this presentation. But again, just always trying to point out the entry points and how you grow into the higher paid positions. You want to have that plan or path, as you chart out your career. Again, if you look over to the right, computer user support specialist, the help desk, you might be looking at mid-30s to early 40s for entry in. But once you get into these large shops and you grow your knowledge, you expand upon your certificates-based education, you can be trusted into going in career paths for programming, security, things like that. Architects, I'm trying to, what's the one everybody always gets? Obviously, when you see the word manager, there's going to be a degree of education for that. But a lot of times you'll see software architects and things. Those are kind of managerial positions because when writing computer code, if you can, there's a saying, you can skin a cat, many ways, but that's the same thing with writing code. There's multiple ways you can get the computer to run and make it do what you want to, but there needs to be somebody over all of it, streamlining, making sure the most efficient code is written and that they're, working with each other to do that. And those are what experienced programmers can go on and become, like architects and things like that. All right. Is money all that matters? I don't know. Everybody wants to chase money, but there's a reason why some positions are paid a lot, and that's because maybe not everybody has the aptitude to do it. And you hate saying that. You never want to limit, and that's why I always encourage everybody try. Learn, see if it's for you. Um, for IT or even finance, obtaining a bachelor's level of education in finance or economics or maybe even business administration. So, but should you be able to, go forward and get this education, it could help you, have a higher paying position with that. So, don't really know if I explain that real well, but I want to kind of get to the question and answer so I can make sure I speak to everyone specifically what they have. The last of the career paths is healthcare. We all know this because none of us, it's important to all of us, right? Whether it's for us individually, our children, our parents, we always want people to be taken care of well. And that's what I constantly tell my children. You either, need to be on the technological side of technology, whatever career field you're going to go, or you need to be in healthcare. I kind of simplify it for them. And my reason for saying that is that somebody like myself, I was originally a teacher with Duval County Schools. And one summer I handed out my resume and I got a job in the mortgage industry. And those days of getting a decent job, just doing analyst kind of work, playing around with spreadsheets and things like that, it's being done away with. Artificial intelligence is really amazingly able to do what people never fathom. That it would always be a human brain that had to do. So I look at healthcare as I don't think any of us want robots coming in and giving us pills and jabbing our veins. We're always going to want that human touch, and that's what I try to always say about one of the benefits of healthcare. So a perfect path is right there. The lowest level, my niece got this designation when she was still in high school, is a CNA. And what's great is there's such demand for nursing, is if you can get into most any medical institution, but especially the hospitals here in town, and you can, get accepted into a nursing program, FSCJ, UNFJU. There's also some private ones. There's a lot of help to try to, help pay for that education to become a nurse. And then once you become a nurse, there's nurse practitioner, there's nurse anesthetist, if I said that right, some really well-paid positions out there. And Matthew is validating me, and that is what I tell everybody. The days of getting a business degree, I'm on advisory boards with FSCJ, and I keep trying to tell the finance. A lot of times, like the finance committees or advisory councils, they go, "Oh, well, that's information technology," and I'm going, "No." If we're not training people coming through and getting business degrees on data tools and knowing how to operate that, we're really doing them a disservice. But back to healthcare, again, you've seen us do listings. Obviously, physicians make the most, which only makes sense. Registered nurses don't do bad. RNs, that's normally a bachelor's level of education. But again, the path of how you get there. One secret I want to say to this audience is one of the amazing things about Baptist Medical Center healthcare is if you can get in with Baptist in food service or even like environment, they call it environmental, but as a janitor, they have programs to help grow you. So they are hurting for surgical technicians. Believe it or not, just somebody in the operating room knowing what tool to hand to the surgeon, so the surgeon never has to take his or her eyes off the patient and know that they're getting handed the right thing. That is a great career path. People do well in that. And that is training that many of the hospitals will pay to grow their people and, have those jobs. So, um, I think I'm afraid I've bored y'all a lot with the career paths, but that's what we always want to make sure everybody understands is, where do you start and where do you go? Where you go is a lot dependent on you a lot of times, with time and motivation. Most anything can be possible, but you got to get in and you got to target certain companies that can make that possible. So there's sometimes I'm always telling people, like, don't look at that initial wage that you're being offered. That could be the thing that takes the longest to get there, because sometimes employers have to do that to get people to come and work for them, is they will pay a high initial wage, but there's not the growth there. So always factor that in. I know I might be talking to parents. I've got the 16-year-old as well. If any of y'all need advice, I can give you his name and number. He can tell you everything. I don't think it's right myself, but of course he does. But when we're talking with kids, to try to help them understand, what the bigger picture is, and to know that plan of getting there. So again, just a little bit of a plug for us at Career Source. What I should be able to do is pull up, okay, it looks like I hope I'm still sharing a Chrome instance. If somebody in the chat can say they're seeing my Chrome, that would be great.
We can see you.
Okay, great, thanks. So I want to start here real quick, and if we can take off mute and let people ask questions. But one thing that our chamber does is we have an economic development mission through something called JAX USA, and they have an initiative named Earned Up. So I know I've given you 3 linkages there, but if you go to earnup.org, they do have career pathways, and amazingly, it's what we've talked about, and then there's resources. So for educators to help their students understand and know, there's some good things there for them. So one person's identified they're interested in IT, and if you go into here, there'll be some papers, and we pay into informational services that provide us a lot of data, and we try to snapshot it so you can read it pretty fast. But as you see, a lot of this looks kind of similar, because this is where we get the information to put into those presentations that we're asked to do at times. But EarnUp is a great resource. Again, it's just earnup.org. There is something geared for high school. JAX USA Partnership is another great resource. They're the ones who are powering the EarnUp website, so there might be some duplication. But again, you'll see the reinforcement of the manufacturing, transportation, finance, health, and IT. And then what I like about this site is you can go out here to tools and resources. And if you want data and you're kind of a nerd like me and want to just get lost, great research for you to go and get lost in. So that's one thing. And then our website, I would hate to job seekers, if you hover over that, there'll be some things. Again, our primary mission are to help people who've experienced layoff get back into work, but it's all a lot of the same information. We do have an events calendar for job hiring, if that helps you where you are as a parent, or if it helps you to get a child motivated about finding a job. So those are some of the things I wanted to point out, but at this time I'd really like to shut up because I've talked a little too long, and try to speak to those of you who've taken time out of your night to make sure I've spoke to you and given you what you've sought. So I believe you should be able to take yourself off of mute at this time. So I'm going to speak to you, Matthew. One thing I will say that's a very good source of information is meetup.org, okay, or meetup.com, excuse me. All Meetup is a site. So you might be going, wait a minute, this is where my family goes and shares recipes for Thanksgiving or something. That might be what Meetup's used for. But the good news about here in Jacksonville is a lot of IT events. I guess the first one used this as kind of their organizational website, and others have followed. But in Jacksonville, you can see technology-based groups that meet. So this one is Jack's Women in Technology. I'm trying to see how I get more because I normally do this off of my phone. But let's go in person, see what that does. Okay. Interesting. Normally there's more, but I apologize right now. I'm not gonna, play around with this and distract you. But for instance, like people who are working with servers, doing networking for a company, there's a group, Jack Server, meets monthly. And then one is called like Big Data Jacks. What these are people who take data and do analytics using technology. So essentially, there's a lot of data out there that's public source or open or can be bought very cheaply. But what do you do with all of the JEA's data that they'll sell you as a matter of public records? Well, the person who can take that and interpret that and mesh that with I don't know, magazine subscription data that you might be able to get. And you can kind of intersect that. That can make very valuable leads for sales or trending analysis so people know where, growth might be going or something like that for putting in a new business. And those groups, what they do is they meet throughout the month. They meet up is where you can find out, when and where they're meeting, and you can go, and what they are just people out of their genuine interest to stay current in their career field, going on their own time to listen to a topical speaker talk about the latest trends. And it's a great place to network. So whenever I'm talking with job seekers or people maybe who are thinking about transitioning from a career field outside of IT to begin in IT, I can tell them what I know, and that's what I've deduced by talking with people in the industries. And but that's such a small part of it. So if you can actually get to where the actual people who work in the industry are meeting on their own time, they can say, oh, no, at our firm you can come in without an A+ certificate or a Net Plus certificate and start tier 0. Then you can get that while you're on the job. Or say, Matthew, if you're, learning Python, you can go to the Python user group that does meet monthly through Meetup and say, okay, here's my skill level in Python. Are there junior programmers for somebody like me? And that's not assessing your skill. I'm not trying to say that, but, finding out where current opportunity is, or, I can learn online what is it that's a curriculum that would interest your employer. Would this certificate interest them that I can obtain through this provider? So that's the nice thing about the day and age of the internet. There's a lot of people out there offering coursework. You just want to make sure that at the end of it, it's really going to be something that's going to help you in the employment side before you spend that time to obtain that. But I do apologize, Matthew. There's something going on with the filter. I don't know if I have to be signed in or not, but typically throughout the month, there's probably about 20 to 25 groups meeting. So it wouldn't be for some reason I'm limited to the 3, but I know most of them are all meeting again in person. In fact, just 2 weeks ago, one meets at the Museum of Science and History every quarter, and we just did our first live event since coronavirus kind of knocked everything out.
Ryan, can I hop in here and
Please
ask you a question? So one thing I'll also say, just as another opportunity to kind of network and meet people, the other thing that came to mind as you were talking was the IT Council of the Chamber as well. Another group of IT folks as well, for those of you who might be interested in opportunities in the IT world. My question was for those parents who might be on and listening with their students who say, well, I'm thinking that maybe college isn't the path I want to go. Maybe I want to look at some type of career field and going straight into the workforce. And they want to get started with, let's say, a part-time job or something at one of the logistics places, for example, that you mentioned. Where would you recommend they start? Is there a
This is recorded,
job
right?
search?
Everybody's great if it's recorded. No, what I would always, the advice I can always give and not go wrong is, with social media, it's so easy. If you are thinking of UPS as a good one that a lot of people use while they go through school, and to go for that, not necessarily school. Some people just they want to get on the brown truck. Those positions pay over 100,000 a year. They make really good money. You can kiss your December goodbye, but that's just part of the way it is. I mean, there's a lot of overtime and money made in December to add up to that $100,000. Oh goodness, I mean, Amazon has come in, and I know a lot of people, because we look around and we ask around. There's something called Glassdoor where people can trash companies and say a bunch of bad things, and you got to, take that with a grain of salt, right? Like sometimes people could win the lottery and they would complain about the taxes, but Glassdoor is one way that you can kind of see, what company is good. But in all honesty, I would use my social media to get to knowing people who have people working at some of these operations. Look at job postings. Look for who works at night if that's what you're looking to do with that. So UPS, Amazon, but Wayfair, all these places, they have to have nighttime operations. And those of us raising families, we really, cherish banker's hours, while our kids are at school. But if you're in one of those positions or states of life, statuses of life, where, the banker's hours Monday to Friday aren't so important, that can really lead to a lot of opportunity for people to kind of do two things, to work those jobs and go to school or other such things. So.
One other quick spin-off question. So would you say that it's probably best for job seekers to go directly to an organization's website that they're interested in, or maybe just try like an Indeed or another type of job search engine? Is that you have any recommendations on that?
Yeah, you can. You can use the normal sites, and right now all of them are going to work if you're persistent. There is some disconnect, right? I know there's a story floating around the internet right now where somebody applied online to all the jobs that had the help wanted signs out front, and they went to their website and applied and they didn't hear back. There's always going to be that disconnect or that possibility of disconnect. But right now there's such a labor shortage. It's a great time to pursue. Again, if you don't know people working at the particular firm you're trying to go to, then you have to do what you do. If you go out to an event, if you can meet a live.
If you go out to an event.
I'm sorry if we can mute that. It sounds like there's feedback. Okay. Um, if you can go to a live event and get the actual name and somebody who can, help you and interact, that should help as well, getting through. One thing that we haven't talked about is maybe the places that aren't so transparent or open. Sometimes, like to get into a lot of logistical work or to get into the unions, like the longshoremen, they have casual positions that you work. So you're not gonna be on the list where you can kind of realistically expect 40 hours a week. You got to kind of put in your time to earn your time in at the union hall or something like that to get up that list. So there are positions like that. But yeah, I mean, for the most part. Now, lastly, let me make sure I tell y'all about another possibility is sometimes, companies just cannot afford to staff up a recruiting operation. And because when they hire employees, if somebody comes in and then they don't like it and they leave, there's a lot of expense in that. So if you ever hear the term staffing, please understand and know that there's a good reason for that. So what a lot of employers will do, and manufacturers are real big on this, but even office environments, they'll pay staffing companies who are always out there recruiting, always out there sifting resumes, finding people through Indeed and things like that. And they'll pay them to place people within their organization, have 90, 180-day contracts. And it's really good as a job seeker. Most people want to work directly for the company, and I understand that. But I try to caution everybody today how much of a negative it is to have a chopped up resume, is one way we might say it, or it looks like you job bounce or something like that. So what staffing contracts can allow somebody to do, one, is immediately get in because they're going to have a fill somewhere. But if they go somewhere and the culture isn't what they are looking for, if it's maybe got a mill mentality to it or something, and people really face some stress at their last employer with that type mentality, then as long as you're showing up and you're doing well, there's nothing to stop you from saying, hey, I really don't like it here. Is there another position somewhere else? And then you can try other opportunities until you find that right fit. But the beautiful thing in it all is you're employed by that staffing company the whole time. So when you eventually do, have to show your resume, whatever the time is from that, you might have worked for multiple contracts or different companies, but your employment the whole time would say that one staffing company. So that's just something to think about. Back in 2007, the world was falling apart for me in the mortgage industry. I was finishing up my master's program at UNF, and luckily somebody connected me with a direct hire professional. And I didn't know what that meant. I just wanted to know what's in it for this person acting so nice to me. How much are they going to charge me? And the gentleman put me at ease and was like, "Hey, don't worry. You don't pay me for my service. The company does." And I'm just scratching my head. How does this work? Well, I went and worked directly for a company, a big name company in the area that I would have been ecstatic, and I was ecstatic to accept. But again, it's kind of that same thing that companies don't want to hire all these recruiters because sometimes they got to hire a lot, sometimes they have to hire little, and they don't want to lay off employees in between those times. So they work with these staffing firms to bring them talent. And the good news to the job seeker is that whether it's staffing or a direct placement, somebody's working on your behalf trying to tell a company how good you are, because there's a financial incentive of them paid for by the company. So it's not going to affect your pay or anything like that. And it's kind of a free help, so to speak.
Okay. And we will give one more opportunity if there's anyone that have any questions. Again, we want to make sure to be respectful of everyone's time. Well, again, I just want to thank Brian, first of all, for joining us this evening and for sharing this information with us. And thank you again so much to all of you for listening in and for participating in the call this evening. Thank you all again and have a great evening.